almost every law students either fears or struggles, or something that they desperately want to improve in. And it's basically nothing other than moot courts. So from research to memorial drafting to oral rounds and courtroom confidence, mooting can honestly be really overwhelming. The questions that pop up in your head, like how do I conduct an efficient research, or how do I compete with the good mooters or mooters who already have a vast experience in like various moot courts, what actually matters during the oral rounds, and various other questions like how do some people sound so confident in the courtrooms. So if you've ever wondered about any of these things, you're absolutely in the right place today. It's now my absolute pleasure to introduce you to today's speaker, Miss Nandini Achra. We're truly delighted to have you here with us today. And before you get into the session, I would just like to say some few words about you. Nandini Achra is a distinguished legal scholar at Institute of Professional Studies, New Delhi, recognized for her consistent academic excellence and merit rankings. She's acquired extensive practical exposure through 30 plus legal internships with leading advocates, law firms, and legal organizations, including work under a senior advocate at the Supreme Court of India. Her experience encompasses legal research drafting, client advisory, and courtroom procedures, reflecting a strong foundation in both theoretical and applied aspects. Nandini ma'am has demonstrated exceptional proficiency in moot court and advocacy and has secured the best memorial at the second Professor Christoph Hens India School moot court competition, and achieving a distinction in various national level competitions related to policy making, drafting, case competitions, content writing, etc. She's also played an active role in organizing and hosting moot court competitions, contributing meaningfully to the development of the advocacy platforms. A prolific researcher and writer, she has authored 40 plus publications across diverse domains, including constitutional law, arbitration, environmental law, and contemporary legal issues. Her academics and co curricular activities achievements are further complemented by numerous awards in national level competitions and scholarly activities. In addition to her academic pursuits, Nandini ma'am is actively engaged in legal aid and community service initiatives as a paralegal volunteer and student leader, demonstrating a very strong commitment to advancing legal awareness and access to justice. In this webinar, she brings a nuanced and practice oriented perspective to moot court trainings, offering insights into legal research, memorial drafting, and effective advocacy. Ma'am, the floor is all yours now.
Am I audible and visible? Am I audible?
Yes,
Ma'am, I don't think I'm able to hear you. I don't know if it's just me, but is there anyone
yes,
else
ma'am.
in the
Yes, ma'am.
meeting who faces the same
Oh,
problem?
yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much for such a warm welcome. So I'm just sharing my share screen.
Okay.
Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So greetings everyone. I warmly welcome to all the participants to this webinar. The topic of this webinar is moot court strategy, research, arguments, and courtroom presentation. And I'm genuinely very much grateful for this opportunity as well. I am Nandini Achra, and it is truly a pleasure to interact with all of you today. Mooting is one of the most transformative experiences in law school because it teaches us not only how to study law theoretically, but even how to think, argue, and present like future advocates. So today we'll discuss how to approach a moot proposition, how to research strategically, and how to draft better memorials, how to answer judges confidently, and last, how to improve the courtroom presentation skills. Moving further, before we begin, so this is a brief introduction of myself. So let us first understand that what a moot court actually means. So anyone in the participants willing to answer this question, that what is actually a moot court?
Hello, good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, may I answer your question?
Yes, please, yes.
Ma'am, basically, a moot court is a dummy way through which we can actually prepare ourselves. How do we actually present in our original court or real court? Because in this moot court competition, we get a case like we need to prepare facts, but and we prepare for our questions beforehand. But in original courts, we don't know the judge, what will judges at, and how do we will proceed, because we are just on ourselves. Because in moot court competition we have a researcher and who is also help us, because if we forget something during the case during the competition, but
Yes.
during the actual court we don't have any researcher to help ourselves.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. Any more answers? Okay, so let me tell you, a moot court is a simulated court proceeding, basically, as what the participant just said, that where the students argue a fictional legal dispute. We got means we generally get a moot proposition and we have to argue upon the same before the judges. So it replicates entire a real courtroom practice and helps the student to develop advocacy skills, oral advocacy skills, basically. So mooting combines legal research, memorial drafting, analytical thinking, public speaking, and courtroom etiquettes. Before I explain further, can anyone tell me that what you think is the biggest difference between classroom learning and moot court practice? Anyone in the participants can answer the same.
Hello, good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Ma'am, in classroom learning, there is basically the theoretical knowledge, but the real moot court helps to gain the practical knowledge that we are not learning in our classrooms.
Yes, exactly. In classrooms, we study law theoretically. Only theories in law actually is there we learn. But in moot courts, we apply the law practically, and that's what a moot court is, to give us a better experience when we actually become future advocates. So just to move further, why students fear mooting? Now, this is something most law students would actually relate to this topic. Many students fear mooting just because of few general reasons. There are means they are nervous because about they are conscious about public speaking. They are afraid of judicial interruptions. They are actually afraid judges questioning them in between their arguments because they have actually memorized all the arguments. So this is something the most fearing part the students actually fear about. They lack confidence in speaking. They rely too much on memorization. But honestly, every successful mooter was once nervous in their first round. Confidence in mooting actually does not come naturally. It comes from preparation, practice, and understanding the arguments very deeply. So, how many of you feel nervous about speaking in front of the judges or audience? Not specifically in mooting, but in general sense as well. I think many of them would actually feel nervous, but you can also type yes in the chat box. So yes, most of us are actually nervous because I was even once nervous in my first mood. So that nervousness is completely normal. If you are not nervous, that's actually something we call as abnormal thing, because the goal is not to eliminate the fear immediately. The goal is to improve even despite fear. So every great mooter was once nervous in their first mood. So this is something very normal that you as a student or you as a counsel could actually fear about. So this is just an introduction for the same. So now, starting with the session, I want to introduce a simple and practical strategy model called the STAR strategy for all the mooters here. So S, that stands for study the proposition. So it simply means to read the facts repeatedly, twice, thrice, means before the oral arguments. You have to be, the facts should on the tips, means you should read the facts thoroughly and identify the legal issues that are there, the contradictions that the other party might ask, the judges might interrupt, and hidden facts behind the same as well. The perfect mooter is the one actually who is thoroughly revised with the moot proposition. T stands for target the law. So, like targeting the law in the sense like you should be thorough with the research statutes that you are referring to in the Moot Memorial, the precedents, that is the landmark judgments that you are referring to, and the principles. Means if any kind of a principle like UBJCB remedium, where there is a right, there is a remedy. If you are referring to this principle, then you should have proper relation with that, with the fact that you are quoting or with the argument that you are referring in front of the judges. The landmark case laws to engage the judges as well is one of the most important key point that the judges actually get into and engage with the mooters. The A specifically means argue with the structure. Your argument should be structured in a very well formatted manner, and you should always follow in this format, like issue, the law that you are relating to, the application of the law with the facts of the case, and the conclusion. Conclusion here simply means the prayer. Prayer, for the beginners, I just explained, prayer is simply something that the counsels actually ask or plead in front of the judges to actually, means on behalf of the client basically. So you are praying that you are arguing on behalf of your client. R stands for respond with confidence. Confidence is something, the most important factor that actually judges look into. We have to handle judicial questions calmly and respectfully, because in front of the judges, successful mooting requires a balance of all those skills. Judges don't see the argument that you have memorized. Judges actually see that what you means what actually you have understood the problem or not. They doesn't see that you are memorized, your memorizing skills are well or not. Anybody can memorize the facts, but the judges that actually mark upon, the counsel that they're marked upon, is the skills, the understanding of the facts, how well they are prepared with, and how the confidence they are actually building in front of the judges to answer upon their questions. So I think this star mooting strategy would actually help a lot of us in mooting in further future. If any questions are there, I'll take it in the last. So the next is research strategies. So in a mooting, research is the backbone of every moot court competition. Without strong research, oral arguments actually become weak automatically, because we all know that there are mainly two types of legal resources, primary and secondary. So moving further with the primary sources, it includes the Constitution, Bare Acts, case laws, international conventions. And secondary includes commentaries, journals, research papers, and law commission reports. But students should also learn the platforms like SCC Online. All of us know, right, that SCC Online is the most authentic source for case laws. Means if any of the case law is not mentioned on SCC Online, then it is something not considered to be authentic. The next one is the Manupatra and Hine Online. And we all know that Indian Qanun is also referred to as authentic, but generally and in actual facts, Indian Qanun is something that we should not refer to, because it actually has means facts that are not real. So this is just a tip, that don't use Indian Qanun for your mooting, because judges might question on the same thing as well. So I would just like to question once again that can anyone name another legal research platform that they have actually used before, or have used these only and have helped them a lot in their mooting career? Anyone in the participants?
I used to use Case Mind because it used to summarize the facts and everything as simplest way possible, like this.
Yes, but one practical tip is that do not collect too many cases unnecessarily, because case mine is something that actually summarizes and gives very much authentic cases. But the point is that SCC Online is the thing that actually authenticate and verify the originality of the case. So whenever you read through case mine, you should always authenticate and verify with these sources, SCC or Manupatra. These are something considered to be very authentic.
Ma'am, how about the Westlaw?
Hine Online and Westlaw Asia is something that we actually use interchangeably, but most preferred is Hine Online, because in Westlaw Asia there are some cases that are not marked upon.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Is there any other legal platform that you guys have actually used or wanted to research upon more?
Air Online.
Hine Online, yeah. You can use this platform. Okay, let's move further. Now, many students read judgments passively. but actual and a genuine mooter must read cases strategically. Whenever you read a case, you should always focus on firstly the facts, that what has happened, and identify the key events. Basically, you should make a kind of a flow chart of the entire case law. Second, the issues, that what legal question are actually raised. Means once you have read the fact, you would automatically understand what the problem is or what the question is there in front of the judges. Next is the ratio decidendi. It simply means the legal reason for the decision. The main held portion of the judgment is called the ratio decidendi. Next is the obiter dicta. These are the remarks that are not binding but they are persuasive. So in general language, it simply means the observations of the court to support the ruling. If you skip obiter dicta as well in mooting, it is all right. But the point that you should always focus upon is ratio decidendi, because this is something judges actually ask in mooting. This is something whenever you quote a case, whenever you cite a case, the judges would ask only two questions about citing a case. Firstly, how do you relate the case with the problem that you are actually given to? And secondly, what's the ratio decidendi, or what was held in this particular case? They would even not ask the facts of the case. They would ask the held portion of the case. Next and the last one is the final judgment. Remember, do not merely cite cases, always explain that how the judgment applies to your proposition as well, because this is something judges would actually engage with. Judges would actually get excited when you actually relate the case and they think that you have actually researched upon. So you should always focus on applicability to a proposition, judicial reasoning in the case, and comparative precedents from other courts. Means if you are quoting any international judgment, you should always relate that whether that judgment have used anywhere in the Indian jurisdiction as well, if it is a national moot court. If it is an international moot court, you can always cite an international judgment without any relevance as well in India. So this is what a real mooter should actually read a case upon. Moving further, the memorial drafting strategy. Now let us discuss the memorial drafting, how you should actually structure your memorial basically. So a memorial means, anyone would like to answer that what's a memorial in a moot court? Just in one line, that what do you understand by the word memorial? Anyone in the participants?
The whole content of things that we are going to present in front of the bench.
Written legal documents.
Yes, exactly. A memorial is a written submission that is very rightly said, presented before the court and the judges. So basically it reflects your research quality, the legal understanding and the drafting skills. So a standard memorial includes these structure points. So I have mentioned it clearly in the slide as well. Firstly, the cover page, index of authorities, jurisdiction, list of authorities, jurisdiction, statement of facts, the issues raised, summary of arguments, arguments advanced, and at the last, the prayer. So I think this is very much clear. So if till now there are any questions, you might ask right now. Okay, so now at this point, I will briefly show an example of a strong memorial on the screen itself. Please observe the formatting and the citation skills of the same.
Ma'am, yeah, Nandini, there is a question, if I can go ahead with that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I was telling that how to avoid the repetitions while maintaining the clarity and precisions.
Repetitions in the memorial or the while oral advocacy?
In memorial.
Yeah, so firstly, many councils actually while mooting do repetitions because they think this is something that would actually gain importance or would engage the eyes of the judges in front of the memorial. But the first point is that you should always structure your memorial very efficiently, and you should draft in the same format that is actually provided. Always the guidelines are mentioned in whichever competition you take part into. There are various guidelines that you should actually adhere to. And these are the guidelines that the council are actually marked upon, and there are very strict guidelines like Times New Roman should be there, the references should be there. Even you actually have a proper limitation of the pages as well. So in case you repeat certain things, so this is the point that you would lack upon. You would actually get a shortage of pages because the real advocacy, the real mooting memorial, the best memorial I'll be showing you as well. But the best memorial is something more arguments in concise words. So when you repeat the same thing again and again, this is something you would lack upon and you would actually lack the scores in it. I hope that answers the question.
It's a fine, but there is a question with this only. It's related with this, that like avoid repetitions with maintain clarity and precisions in memorial drafting. Like if we have a huge percentage of cases at that period of time, how can we avoid the repetitions? Or it may that the maintain of clarity may not come at that period of time. So what to do at that moment?
Okay, so to provide clarity in the memorial itself, I'm just getting this question right. If I'm just getting this question right, so to maintain clarity without repetitions, it is something that you should provide. Firstly, you should provide the landmark judgments that I just quoted. Landmark judgment is something that you could actually relate upon with the facts of the problem, and many good moot court competitions actually copy the same facts of a particular judgment so that the people can argue upon from both the sides, and this is something their skills would actually be marked upon. So you can just quote the landmark judgments, and this would actually means provide clarity and precision to the judges as well whenever they read the moot memorial basically. Secondly, you should cite various good principles like I'm just to be specific, you should mention legal maxims. Legal maxims actually attract the judges because it reflects upon the research skills. You should, and if anything is there that you should actually include, but you have shortage of pages or something like you want that repetition should not be there, you should always mention it in the reference section, the footnoting section, so that in case something is there that you lack upon in the memorial as well, you should mention in the end notes, footnotes, references, so that the judges could refer that as well. Is that fine?
Good answer, but one more thing. I'm never mind. Okay, Nandini. Last what I'm asking. Like suppose if the bench of the judges changes to some other bench, then again we have to avoid the repetitions.
Bench of the judges changes, it means the round in the next round.
Yeah, no, like in cases what actually happens. Suppose one case is under an honorable judge, right? So at the time of giving an order, like the honorable judge has listened to everything, right? Now what happens there in the second bench or in the second round, the judges changes. Then in that period of time, how can we avoid the repetitions or maintain the clarity? and
Yes,
precision?
that's what I was just saying, that in the second round, if you get qualified, yes, you have. Firstly, in the second round, most of the competitions give you a little more time as compared to, for example, the rounds are preliminary, quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. These are something that goes generally. This is the usual structure. So in the prelims, if you just qualify, so in the quarter rounds, so you have to actually, you will get more time as well. Firstly, you will actually get time to structure your arguments more precisely, and you also know that what the other party could contradict upon, so you can include that as well in the arguments while arguing in the second round as well. And thirdly, to avoid any kind of repetitions as well, according to me, you should always prepare a structured script that you should actually argue, that you are going to argue in front of the judges. You should always prepare a structured script because it would actually help you to refer to the points while arguing, while oral arguing in front of the judges. So it would definitely avoid repetition firstly, and secondly, it would get the judges also understand this thing that in the previous round you have actually mentioned these facts. So in the second round, they would ask certain kind of different questions that would relate to the problem itself. I hope that answers.
Good answer. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll be just showing you the best memorial one. Just a second. Yeah, so is this memorial visible to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
So this is one of the memorials that actually I also got best memorial award for this. So this would be the cover page. I would actually want all the participants to go through the formatting, the citations, and the structure that this memorial have actually opted into. Because this is all you are actually marked upon. The judges won't mark upon the memorial. Memorial is actually marked upon the formatting only and the structure that you have actually delved into. If anybody wants to stop at any point, I would just stop.
Ma'am, I have just small request to make. Could we get this PDF or of the memorial or the recording of the session?
I would ask the organizers for this.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. In the list of abbreviations, basically you have to include all the abbreviations, all the short forms that you have used in the entire arguments, because in the arguments, if any word is there that you think that it is a normal short form or abbreviation, but the judges might not know the words, so they would refer to this section itself. Because these are some of the, for example, NDRF or SDRF, these are some of the words that many of the judges might not know. So you have to refer in the abbreviation section. In index of authorities, you have to mention all the authorities that you have referred into. It simply means the case laws, the statutes, or the provisions that you have referred to. And just a suggestion, if you just mark the page number as well, because it would actually give them a reference to in case they want to refer to a particular case or particular question they want to ask related to the case. So they would just swap the page and would get into there. Yeah, so these are the statutes. Other authorities can include any of the website, the authentic website that you have referred to. Means don't mention Wikipedia, they would not give marks for that. And the statement of jurisdiction, it is mostly mistaken and mostly marked upon section, because many people actually do mistakes in the statement of jurisdiction itself. And this is where the judges ask questions, and they ask questions that like why you have put this problem in this jurisdiction, why you are here in this jurisdiction. The other party would say something else, the petitioner would say something else, the respondent would say something else. So this is what the judges would actually point out and would hinder you as well. So statement of facts, we can structure the statement of facts in any of the formats. So I have just formatted in kind of a table or a summary format. It is up to you. You can do it in a point-wise format as well. Yeah, so statement of issues. Firstly, you have to mention the issues that are referred into. So this case was basically on SLP, special leave petition. Summary of arguments. It simply means to just concise the entire argument upon an issue in just one para. And the arguments advanced. This structure can vary. Every mooter have a different structure. So this is my structure that I actually used upon. You can structure it in subcontentions. I have used Blue Book reference style here. You should adhere to the guidelines that are referred in the proposition basically. So yeah, just scrolling to the last, these are the arguments. Yeah, so this is the prayer. Prayer is something that you should actually make it very concise. This is something you are actually praying before the court. The judges would simply ask that what you are praying. They would not ask this long paragraph, or they would not have any much time to actually read your prayer as well. They would just ask, pray in one line. So for that you should know that what you are actually praying. You cannot read in front of the judges that this is the prayer that I want that this SLP should be maintainable or not maintainable. You just have to be prepared with one liner prayer, so that whenever the judges ask certain kind of question, you should be on tips. So yeah, that's it. This was from the counsel for petitioner side. Just a second. Yes. Is my screen visible?
No, ma'am, your screen is not visible.
All right, just a second. Yeah. Now is it visible?
It is, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Just a second. Yes. So coming after memorial, coming on to the art of oral advocacy. So it is the most exciting part that mostly beginners are very excited to argue upon in front of the judges. They are nervous as well, but they are excited as well. As I was too very much excited for this thing. So the moment you say, may it please the honorable court, your advocacy begins. So some important advocacy tips are to speak slowly in front of the judges, maintain eye contact. It simply means maintain eye contact with the judges. So it simply means that do not read the script or do not actually read in front of the judges that this is something I would quote or this is something I have mentioned in my memorial. Don't show judges like this something. You should have proper eye contact with the judges. And secondly, I'm not saying to memorize the arguments, but I'm just saying you may refer to a point, understand the point, and just explain in your own words in front of the judges. By the same side, you should stay respectful and avoid reading mechanically. That just I said that you should avoid reading mechanically because it doesn't look that you have actually understood the problem. It just looks that you have memorized it or you are just reading onto the facts. Judges generally appreciate the clarity, the logic, and the confidence, composure of the person that actually is mooting. Now, what do you think makes an advocate or a counsel sounds confident in a moot court competition? Any of the participant, what do you think that what makes an advocate confident in front of the judges?
Preparation and practicing.
Yes, exactly. This was the correct answer that I would actually applaud upon as well. This is the preparation and the clarity of thoughts that actually matter much more than speaking loudly. Means if the other party is saying something and you just raise your voice and speak loudly that this is not the case, judge, or this is not the case, my lord, the judges would not answer that. The judges would not actually pay heed to that as well. Even they would deduct your marks. So the preparation and the clarity of thought would actually means give you brownie points for the same. The confidence is something that you would actually boast upon in front of the judges. Next is the handling judicial questions. So one of the biggest fear in mooting is judicial questioning. That how would I answer? How I'm going to answer in front of the judge if they ask random questions. There are various mooters. They have actually gained marks and have actually won the best speaker award just by answering the question of the judges very confidently. Even the arguments are not good, but you're answering the questions very promptly, accurately, and with pure clarity. They would actually gain marks. This is the point that most of the mooters win or lose. So the questions are a positive sign because judges are engaging with your arguments. It simply means that judges are actually heard your arguments and they are pointing out the questions. So this is very positive point that the mooter should be happy about that they have actually been questioned. So there are certain do's and don'ts that I have jotted with my experience, with my personal experience. So you should always listen carefully. Means whenever the judge is saying, don't interrupt or don't pause before answering. Whenever the judge asks the question, do not pause. Just stay calm and firstly appreciate or acknowledge the fact that the judge have asked the question, that I really appreciate the question asked. For example, you can just start with this. This would actually give you 2 to 3 seconds to make a structure of answer that you would actually give to the judge at that time. And the most important thing is to never bluff the authorities. Means never say that in the Supreme Court it was held. The judges would immediately counter you and ask that in which case you are actually referring to. If you are bluffing, then that would be a very demeaning thing for you, because this is something judges would actually not cater to and would deduct marks. So you should always say that I am not sure, but this is the answer that I am sure about. Means you can just means you can stay calm. If you're not means if you're not knowing any answer, it's fine. We are also humans. We might not know answer. You just have to say this one line that the council plead ignorance of the fact, but quoting that you can just say, just relating to the arguments, our client is innocent or the client is innocent because, just give a simple one liner reason. So the judges would understand that you know the problem, you know the solution, but the problem is that you are just not aware of the answer at that particular time. So this would actually help you a lot, because judges understand that mooters or the beginners are something, they don't know all the questions, but the confidence, the thing that the mooter will not panic in front of the judge is something you would actually gain points. So if a judge asks you something you do not know what you should do, so the best approach is to respectfully admit it and attempt a reasoned response instead of guessing incorrectly. I personally follow this argue method. This is my personal approach. So basically, A stands for to acknowledge the question respectfully that the judges have asked. R stands for refer to the law or the statute. Means if you state any kind of a law or provision, it would actually attract the judges. They would think that you know certain kind of law that you are referring to and you have understand the problem. G means to give clear logical reasoning, and U means to use precedent to support your point. Whenever you are giving an answer, if you know a case law that is relating to that answer, you should give. But if you do not know any answer or the legal judgment, you should not bluff the authority. This is what I'm actually saying from starting. E and the last is to end with a confident conclusion. Like to end with, you can just say that that's the solution that I am catering to, and that's why I would like to plead in front of the honorable bench. Something like this, you should actually end with a pleading or with the acknowledgement that I really appreciate the question, and this is the answer that I have actually catered to. So this would actually give judges a good impression of the courtroom etiquettes you are referring to. I hope that's fine. Any question for this thing? I hope there's no question. Moving further, the courtroom presentation and etiquettes. So we all know that courtroom etiquettes are must and the most important thing that actually reflects professionalism in the legal career. So always dress formally. For boys, tie is mandatory. Never ask such questions with the organizing team as well, that do we have to wear a tie? For boys, it is necessary a tie, and for girls, tie is not mandatory, but I would prefer that if you wear a tie, it would look a good professionalism in front of the judges. Next, to maintain a good body posture, always stand straight, or while you are sitting as well, sit straight. Do not talk in between. Avoid unnecessary gestures. Means many students or many I have seen, actually, even I also do sometimes, we actually use a lot of hand gestures, or we stop, means whenever the other person is saying, we usually stop showing the hand. So this is something the person or the judge would actually feel this is not a good professionalism in the field of law. You should always address judges respectfully, like your lordship. I would also suggest that before approaching the dais, you should always ask the judge that the council would like to address the bench as your lordship. If there are women, so you should address the bench as your ladyship. So simple gestures like bowing before or after the arguments, or even bowing while entering into the courtroom, it creates a very strong impression in the eyes of the judges, because they think that these are etiquettes that none other of the team is doing, but the person is doing. So certain kind of good impression is there in the eyes of judge as well. So remember that courtroom maturity is often visible before you even begin speaking. So these kind of bowing gestures, or providing or taking permission to actually speak argument number one, so this is something that actually show a professionalism to the judges as well and provide a good impression in their eyes. Moving further, and the most important thing, the common mistakes in moot courts that we as mooters would actually have done. So let us discuss few of them. These include weak research foundation. Means if you have just cited a case law and you are not relating it with the facts of the case. So this is something that judges would ask, or judges would actually ignore this thing because this would deduct your marks. So for this, you should always, while citing a case or while putting a research thing as well, that I have researched, the council would have researched, something like this, you should relate to the fact or the problem as well, like why this is related to the issue or the argument. Memorized speeches. So you should never memorize speech. You should know that what you are willing to argue or what you are going to argue. Of course, you should know. If you are not knowing that, also a biggest mistake that you are doing then. You should always read the point that you have mentioned and then understand in your mind and explain in your own words to the judges. The third problem is poor rebuttals. Now, for the beginners, I would like to just, is there any question? All right. So for the beginners, I would just like to explain that what a rebuttal is. So after the arguments from petitioners and respondent side have been done, so there is a 5-minute or a 3-minute time given for the rebuttal and the sur-rebuttal respectively. Rebuttal simply means from the petitioner side or the plaintiff side to contradict the argument of the respondent or to ask any of the question to contradict or to argue upon. And for the same questions, the respondent would give a sur-rebuttal. Sur-rebuttal means an answer to the questions asked by the rebuttal only. They would not raise any kind of a new question because they are just answering the same. So your rebuttal should be very confident and your sur-rebuttal should be also very exact and precise. That would answer or cater the question of the rebuttal or the petitioner. Next is ignoring judicial questions. Whenever a judges ask a question, you should always give the answer very precisely and to the point. If you don't know the answer, plead ignorance. Say that you don't know the answer, but never say that, never just continue and do not move the arguments round and round to say that this is something I have said, this is something maybe the party had not said. You should always say exact point and what the question have been asked, you should answer the same at the point. Next is lack of teamwork. Means lack of teamwork, it simply means if you have 3 people, you should not ignore the efforts of any of the member. Many a times I have seen that the role of the researcher is not there, of course, in the oral advocacy. There is a good role for providing the chits and all, but many of the times researcher is actually not given that much importance. But according to me, he is the one who have actually drafted the entire memorial. You should not demean him. So that's the point. You should always cater to the teamwork criteria, and this is actually judged at the point of mooting as well. Next is overcomplicated arguments. So many of the students use very flowery and complicated English in front of the judges to show that they know much more about the problem. They know much more about this kind of English, this kind of language. But honestly, you should always use very easy and simple language because 2 pointers are there. Firstly, it gives a good impression that you are using language that is understandable. And secondly, the judges would also means not put in much efforts to know that what actually you are saying. They would easily understand that what you are saying. So clear arguments are always stronger and better than confusing arguments. So I have just written a quote that simplicity is very persuasive. You should be simple and concise with your arguments. So yeah, here is a 5-year mooting roadmap. So this roadmap can help many of the law students to grow step by step. I know that there will be various first, second, third, fourth, and 5th-year students right now. So for all, I'm just clearing it out that for first-year students, the focus should be on basics and the observation. Like they should be building their public speaking confidence firstly. They should argue, they should do certain kind of moot court competitions, but in the first year I would suggest to build up your confidence and the drafting skills, so that in the next or in the upcoming years when you actually argue upon in front of the judges, you're actually properly delved into and you're properly prepared for this scenario that you would actually be dropped in. For the second year, you should learn drafting, a proper structured drafting, for example, as I've shown you, and participate in internal moot court competition. I'm just saying internal moot court competition because in case you lose as well, because always the first mooter is not there to win. We can lose as well. So in case you lose, so firstly, it's an internal mood. You would not feel a lot disheartened. Of course, you will feel disheartened, but not a lot because you would think that next time you would get a bigger opportunity and you might win because now you know your mistakes, now you know the structure, and now you know that how to actually present in front of the judges. For the third year, you should participate in national competitions, as I've just said. For the fourth years, you should explore specialized moods and networking. By the fourth year, you have actually learned a lot of subjects. So, catering to the subjects or your specialization, you should choose the mood code that you are actually interested into. For example, I'm interested in criminal law or civil law, for example. So, I would choose a mood code that is catering to this field so that actually I can also gain a kind of a good exposure to what I have learned in theory to means side by side I can apply practically in the moot court competitions as well. Fifth and the final year, I would actually suggest you should mentor the juniors. You should suggest the drawbacks. You should suggest the experiences that you have delved into. You should actually conduct short campaigns, webinars, so that the other students can actually learn from your practical experiences and prepare for litigation. So I think that the students have actually learned a lot from this. So just to summarize mooting success in one formula. So there is a 5P formula. As you can see in the screen, preparation, practice, precision, presentation, plus presence of mind, which would actually lead to a success and a best moot team. So I think these are pretty easy words. You would actually understand. No need to explain these. So winning teams usually have teamwork. Is there any question?
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Ma'am, actually, I'll be joining my law school from this June. It's like NLSIU. So I was just asking that what one piece of advice you would like to give me before joining the law school?
All right. So firstly, I would just say that I would take all the questions in the last. So, and secondly, just I'll answer this question just to answer this because you have asked. So the one tip that I would actually give it is yes. So for this one, actually, I thought you asked. So firstly, you should always boost up your basics. You should always, first thing is the constitution that you will be learning in the first year, and in the second year, constitution is something that you should always hone and you should always be on tips. Because in every competition, in every moot court competition, because this is specifically to moot courts, so in every moot court competition, you would actually always be given a proposition where constitution would be applied either in this sense, either on that side, because rights and duties is something that every proposition would actually adhere to. So firstly, constitution should be on the tips, and secondly, in the first year, I would always suggest you to focus on the basics. Observe means you should observe any online moot memorials, online moot court oral advocacy rounds. Many of the national and international moot court competitions are there live on YouTube as well. So you should watch them and learn certain kind of skills, because this is something you would actually get prepared for your future years. So in the second year, you should actually participate in internal moot court competitions, in any of the moot court competitions, but this time you would be actually prepared, because in the first year you have actually honed up your skills and you have actually observed each and everything that a real mooter should have done. So I hope that this answers the question.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
Okay. So practical tips for beginners. Before every moot round, I would recommend to have this kind of a checklist. Firstly, read the proposition multiple times. Multiple times, I mean 5 to 6 times or even more. Secondly, to prepare probable questions that can be asked by the other team, with like for the rebuttals or the rebuttal, you have to answer only. And the questions that can be asked from the side of the judges as well, because this is something you would actually be prepared and you would actually have a good answer, a formatted answer, in case you are prepared with the questions itself. Thirdly, you should make speaking notes. You should make speaking notes in the sense you should write only the pointers that you are giving to argue, or you are going to argue in front of the judges. Don't write complete lines. Thirdly, you should practice with timers. So practicing with timers simply means that for the first mooter, generally there are 8 to 10 minutes. So you should be prepared with 7 minutes, because in case the judges ask any question in between, you should be prepared. You should be completely prepared that if you extend any time as well, then you should not be deducted any marks. So you next is to conduct mock rounds with the teammates, with all the 3 members. Should, like in a Google Meet or in offline as well, you should conduct mock rounds so that you feel actually confident in front of the peers. You should speak in front of the friends as well too, so that they can also ask you questions from the rounds or from the arguments that you are arguing upon. And lastly, know your memorial thoroughly. You should read your memorial as well thoroughly, because the questions would be asked by the judges, firstly from the arguments that you're arguing upon, and secondly through the memorial. So you should be, so the memorial and each and every line or the legal maxim, the case laws that you're referring to, the memorial should be on tips, because you can actually, so a suggestion is that you can also point out that on the memorial, on this page number, we have cited this case law. So this would actually give you much more point, because the judges would not have to swap the pages and memorize, or just means they would not have to swap the pages to know that what you are catering to. They would just go to that page number, refer to that section, and would give you points. So let me ask one question: that how many of you have participated in at least one moot court competition before, and how many of you have actually won as well? Just
Hello,
raise
ma'am.
hand. Yeah, yes.
Ma'am, I'm
participated,
second
ma'am.
year of 5-year integrated course. So in my first year, we had a voice moot court competition, because as a first year we don't know anything about drafting and anything. So we made a mistake. So for that we lost, because we
What kind of
didn't
a
know the
mistake was
drafting.
that? I'm asking what kind of a mistake was that, if you want to share.
We made the respondent as a petitioner and petitioners as a respondent
Yeah,
in
so
while drafting.
yes, for this, so from this experience, I think many of the other beginners who are actually entering in the law school for the first time and they don't know that how to draft. So this can be a good thing that they would actually learn from this experience of yours. So for beginners, just remember this, that you do not need to be perfect in your first round, in your first mood. Basically, you only need to improve with every round, because with every round, just like she said, you would actually learn from your mistakes as well, and with the kind of experience you have learned from that, you would actually apply in the next mood court competition, and I hope that in the next one you would actually win, because this is something, this time you know your mistakes, and this time you know that how to structure your arguments. So, as we conclude, I want everyone to remember that moot court teaches much more than competitions, because it teaches legal reasoning, how to analyze, how to interpret, how to apply the law. And this is something it would help in the law school as well, while writing an exam as well, while applying the law. In any of the question, while applying the law, you should have the knowledge, you should have the strategy to analyze the same. So, this is something moot court would actually help you about as well. Second thing is discipline. You should always be professional while arguing. You should always find peace in such kind of competitions. Next is strategic thinking and courtroom confidence. So, courtroom etiquette, I have just been telling that this is the most important factor that judges would actually look upon and mark you upon, because this is one of the most important criteria on the sheet given to the judges for the marking as well. Because while I was hosting the competitions, so this was something that the judges was actually intrigued about, that certain juniors were actually more professional than the senior presenters, because this is something most of the people actually lack and mistake about. So my final message is that the courtroom does not reward the loudest speaker, it rewards the most prepared advocate. So participate fearlessly, keep learning continuously, and trust your preparations. So thank you everyone for being such a wonderful audience. I truly hope today's session gave you practical insights into moot court strategy and advocacy skills. I would also like to thank the organizers for this opportunity to interact with all of you. Now, I would be happy to take your questions. Thank you so much.
Ma, you spoke of not ignoring judicial questions and not evading the question. So what if you don't really know the answers to this question? How do you politely tell the courts that you don't really have an idea of the question?
I'm really sorry, you're
something
not
like that.
clearly audible.
Hell.
If anybody
You spoke about judicial questions.
pardon,
Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm ready to hear you.
Okay, you spoke about not ignoring judicial questions. So how do you politely tell the court that you don't really have an idea of this question? For example, you don't know judicial precedents or statutes regarding that particular question. So how do you say it politely in a professional way?
Okay, so as of I read, I think you are questioning that how to answer any question asked by the judges in case you don't even know the question answer as well. So how to answer that politely? So is that the question?
Yes, that's the question.
So I would just simply answer that. First thing is to stay calm. And secondly, I just told you the argue model. It simply means to acknowledge the question that have been asked by the judges, because it simply means that they have actually heard your arguments and you have the responsibility to answer the questions. So firstly, stay very calm. Secondly, acknowledge the question that I have been asked by the judge. And thirdly, first, if you don't know the answer, plead ignorance. That the council would like to plead ignorance, but with reference to the said question, I would actually like to answer with the landmark judgment. If any case law that you think is supporting your argument, you should just quote the case and how you relate it with the proposition. In case you know the answer, so you just have to concise the facts, concise the answer, and give it to the judge. Like you should say that I really appreciate the question asked by you, your lordship, and according to me that this is the argument that I have prepared and this is the argument I would actually cater to. This is the answer that you want to give. So I hope that answers the question. Is that
yes,
fine?
I understand.
All right,
Yes,
thank
that's
you.
fine, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, Nandini, good evening. There is a question from my end. I was just telling that regarding you said in common mistakes in moot court that weak research foundations, right? So in that weak research foundations, if we take some informations like if someone do a drafting from artificial intelligence, will it be an effective work?
Yes. So, firstly, this is the most common mistake that we as mooters are actually doing. So, we are using ChatGPT, we are using Claude for actually making or drafting the entire memorial. But firstly, remember this: all the data is not correct that is given by ChatGPT. And secondly, I think that most of us know that the case laws that ChatGPT or any of the AI tool provides us is not at all authentic. You ask any judgment from from ChatGPT, he would give a case law with own ear. So this is something that the judges would immediately question you about and ask about that case law, and that's the point where you would actually be fumbled, because you also. And thirdly, the most important point is that if you prepare your arguments yourself and you prepare your arguments with complete research, with day and night hard work efforts, and you have prepared yourself, on the next day while arguing, you will automatically feel confidence. The word confident would not be something that you have actually gained. This is something that you have earned while doing the entire research work. So for this, AI would not give you complete confidence, because if any question is raised by the other party or the judges, you inside know that this is done by AI and it might be wrong. So when you research on yourself, this is something you feel confident and you can actually boast as well, that this is actually I have learned from SCC Online. I have the proof, I have the facts, and this is authentic. I hope that answers the question.
Good answer. Thank you.
Is there any other question?
Good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, my question is, how can participants effectively use case laws during oral advocacy?
Okay, so this is a very good question, because according to me, instead of just citing the names or just citing the case law, participant should always explain the principle established in that case, the ratio decidendi that I just told, and directly connected with the facts of the proposition, because this is where most of the parties or most of the councils lose points. They only cite the case name and say that this is something was held, but only this thing. But the point you would gain marks is tell the case law, firstly cite the case law in the reference, means the entire citation should be mentioned in the footnote. And secondly, you should relate the case law, the ratio decidendi part, with the facts of the case. So the quality of authority matters even more than the quantity. Even if you mention 2 or 3 case laws in the entire memorial, even if. But the point is, you explain it, clear ratio decidendi, orbital dicta, and thirdly related with the moot proposition. This is here that you would gain points, instead of the other party who have actually mentioned 50 case laws but not related. They are not at all relating, and they are just for the quantity fact. So this is something they would not gain marks. So I think that answers the question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Hello, Nandini.
Nandini ma'am, I have a question.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, Nandini. Good evening. This is Khushi. Actually, I'm in the second year of my BA LLB program, and I recently participated in the National Moot, and I won the Best Speaker Award in that. And in the first year, I participated in an intra moot, and we were the winner team of that moot. But there is like confusion with me, like what you have told in the whole session. I have like dealt with all these factors, like I answered very calm. I plead ignorance when the question was out of the proposition or out of my memorial. And in this recent national competition, which was in April only, I have participated and won the best speaker. There was I reached up to the quarter rounds with my team, and there are significant questions out of the memorial. Like there is no any connection to the memorial, but judges were asking the questions. I still politely managed to answer those questions, as I know some of the questions, and some of the questions were from the previous laws, previous criminal laws, like Indian evidence and all this. And we have been studying BSA, BNSS, and BNS. So the questions were from, I answered the BNS questions, BNSS questions, and all these questions, but they were asking the previous laws. And somehow I didn't knew the answer, because we haven't have studied about that or anything, and I'm only in the second year of my law college. So I was asking how to cater these questions which are out of the memorial and out of the proposition.
Yes, I think this is something that actually we feel and we experience this many a times. So firstly, this is a basic structure by the judges as well, and they have actually told as well. In the preliminary rounds, no one asked the question outside the memorial, even outside the moot proposition as well. But in the quarterfinals, because you have been actually judged upon the arguments in the first round, so in the next round, they actually ask more questions and they hear less of the arguments. So they would ask questions if you actually, and this is the most difficult part for all of us of this era, because we have actually faced the two criminal laws like BNSS, CRPC, BNS, IPC, evidence, and BSA. So this is something we actually have to, means, of course, you can ask the judge that, you can inform the judge that you are not clearly able to answer with the correct provision of the previous law. But yes, this was something previously as well. Only certain kind of amendments are made in the new criminal law. You should be able to compare them, because the judges would not see that you are accurate about the statute. You should be confident in saying the answer. The second point is, you should never fumble. Even if the question is wrong, even if the question is asked beyond the memorial, you should cater it respectfully. For example, just to answer the question, you should just say that you know the answer, but this is something you think that you are dicey upon. So you can just say that the council pleads ignorance, but according to
Yeah,
the council,
I know this fact. Like, I did said that the council plead ignorance, and somehow I know like 2 to 3 sections of the previous laws, as I have drafted some divorce petition or something like that. So I answered that, but in the quarter final rounds which I was in, the other party didn't even answer the basic questions, and it somehow just cleansed my heart that I answered all those questions, even from the previous laws. And before answering any of the question which is of major importance, I did said that, Your Lordship, that indeed is a nuanced question, and that has been dealt further in my arguments, or I have explained it right when the judges asked me. But somehow I didn't understand why they excel to the semi-final rounds, or where was my mistake. I even asked so it just somehow disappoints me, as I am not from a big college or something, but I just want to learn to my fullest capacity and all these things. But
so just to answer, this is not a excuse that you're not from a big college, you are from a small, or it means nobody is judging upon your college, because it is completely confidential. Your identity would be completely confidential whenever you participate in any of the moot court competition. This is a basic fact that would actually be there in all the competition, and it would be general and uniform. So this is not the thing that you should actually think upon and be stressful. So I would just want to answer that the possibilities that you did not excel to the other round could be, firstly, the arguments. Maybe the arguments of the other team might be a little better than yours one, and secondly, the other speaker, because you are not the only speaker, there would be the second speaker as well. So the second speaker, the compiled marks would actually go and would decide that who would actually proceed to the next round. And thirdly, the way you answered is the point that you won best speaker, I think, in this competition, right? So that's why, because you answered it correctly and you structured your arguments well, as you just told, so that's why you won best speaker. But maybe due to certain kind of factors that I just told, you didn't excel. And also the marking on the memorial drafting as well, you do not know, maybe you know that the other party have drafted the memorial, you must have been you received the memorial of the other party as well. So if you have seen, so I think that the drafting of the memorial would have gained points from the other party. So the compiled marks would excel them and not you. Maybe a minor difference would be there. This is what I think the possibilities could be of not excelling. I hope that answers.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Hello, good evening.
Hi, Nandini. I have a question.
Yeah, can we just go on the basis
So
of
my
who
question
had
is-
raised their hand before? Along with Mudita, if there's anyone else who wants to ask a question to ma'am, can you all please just stand in the queue raising your hands? That would be great. Thank you.
Can
Yes,
I please put up my question, please?
Yes.
Thank you. So my question is, how can students improve their rebuttal and rebuttal skills?
Yes. So this is something that you would learn by actually mooting itself. But if you wanted to be prepared for the moot court competitions prior, so they should actively listen to the opposing side or the opposite party and note the contradictions within their arguments itself, because this is one of the mistake most of the mooters do. What they do is they get the memorial of the other party one day prior or 1 hour prior at any time. So they just jot down the problems in the moot memorial and they question up the same and contradict the same in their rebuttals while the oral advocacy round. But according to me, and according to the judges as well, so you should actively listen to the opposite party on the day of the oral argument itself and note the contradictions or the authorities they are citing. There are chances that the authorities they are using might be wrong. There are chances the points that are using are against the facts of the case that you have actually been given into. So respond it concisely and just not repeat the prepared arguments. You should not be prepared with, you should know that what can be the contradictions, but you should also listen to the arguments and contradict, because you should start with like this, that as the fellow counsel just quoted, because this is something we don't know that they have mentioned in the memorial and they are not speaking in the arguments. This can be a possibility. For this possibility as well, you need to be prepared. For this thing, you should actually be prepared. You should just say that the fellow participant the fellow counsel have just quoted in his arguments that this law authority is this, but according to me, this is a mistake on his part. This would actually gain a good brownie point for this. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you.
Good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, I am non-LLB student, ma'am, and our university is not offering these kind of opportunities like moot court competitions, like legal research, like drafting and blogging. Ma'am, from which sources do we get these opportunities from the nearby areas that we are living?
So for this, you have various websites, because this is competition mostly catering to LLB students itself. But in case you're non-LLB students, you can just try for drafting, because drafting is something that is open to all. Moot court competitions are strictly there to LLB students only, and
No, ma'am, I'm non-NLU student. I am in 5-year integrated course, but I'm a non-NLU
Okay,
student.
I heard non-LLB student. Sorry. Okay, so if there is no point that you're an NLU student or you're non-NLU student. Even I am a non-NLU student. So what's the matter? There is no excuse like this. You have to actually research upon good competitions. Firstly, in the colleges itself, various portals are there where these are cited, and in case your college does not cite this, or your college does not give certain kind of opportunities, so there are various other platforms online as well. So on Law Octopus, opportunities are there for moot court competitions, drafting competitions, case competitions. With this, you would actually boost up your confidence to speak as well in front of the judges. And secondly, there is Law Bhumi. There are various other platforms but these two are the major ones, the Law Octopus and Law Bhumi, where you could actually very good moot court competitions, plus you would actually gain a lot of exposure as well, because there are various online competition as well. So if you want a suggestion, you should just try a online moot court competition. In that, there are chances you might not win. 10% chances you would gain confidence, because in that the questions the judges ask are very well researched upon, because they have the moot court, the moot memorial in front of them. They can ask n number of questions from you and you would get confidence as well. So this is something I have actually experienced myself as well. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Ma'am, I have a question. Ma'am, to support our arguments and memorials, like how many cases will be good enough to support it?
So firstly, depends on the number of the issues basically you are arguing upon. So in case there is a limit of the pages as well of the arguments given. Most of the competitions, there is a limit of 25 pages in which you have to concise and compile all the arguments advance. So for that, if there are 3 issues, I would suggest you should put in 5 to 6 judgments per issue that are actually relating to the proposition. And in case you're not able to find it, just add 1 or 2 landmark judgments, but give a proper explanation that why it is related to the proposition and why you are referring to and why it is in your favor. You can explain it at your cost. Means you can explain if you have pages. If you don't have pages, you just explain it in one paragraph. It is at your own will. But according to me, if you are giving more judgments with proper explanation, it would give points. But if you just quote the judgments, as I just said, quoting judgments without any explanation or relation with the proposition would not give you points. So I hope that answers.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Excuse me, ma'am. Ma'am, how much time is still left in the class?
Is there anyone who has any further doubts to ask Nandini ma'am, or are we good to go further?
I think if no doubts are there, so we can end this.
Okay, so thank you so much, Nandini ma'am, for this insightful session. I'm pretty sure everybody sitting in this meeting would have gotten a lot to take with them with the agenda of today's meeting. I think what really stood out today was the fact that this was not just about mooting or about sounding intimidating. You know, this was basically about you providing us with clarity, preparation, structure, and the ability to think critically under pressure. And for everyone who joined us today, do not be discouraged if your first moot is difficult. Every good mooter was once first nervous, including ma'am, like she said. And it's a really confusing procedure, I can understand, but what matters is that you go with the entire procedure with consistency, preparation, and the willingness to improve with every round. And we hope today's session gave you a practical insight and a clearer direction as to how you can go about your mooting journey. So, this is it from the Legal Quorum. We're signing off and we'll see you in the next sessions. Thank you.